when you have an idol, sometimes like it's not known. Like around 2019, like I had an idol in my life and it was actually separating me from God. And that's when I needed to quit smoking. Like I was vaping, and he had already quit and things like that. And it was extremely hard for me. I loved smoking, and God was like, is it me or is it your e-cigarette? And I was like, why do you have to like do this? But it was getting in the way, and I made a date and gave it up, and God really like walked me through that. But that was my idol, and I didn't even recognize that it was an idol, that I was putting that before him. Instead of like pulling out my Bible app or talking to him, like I was relying on nicotine as like my fix. Still, even after like drug addiction and everything, that was still an addiction in my life that was taking place over him.
Just some common challenges that you hear on the female side, the
A
wife
lot
or
of
girlfriend side, or just single, doesn't matter, you know?
A lot of it is relationships, because a lot, especially like for women, I feel like this is like mainly like a female thing, and I know that it's for men too, but I see it more with the women. Women, we just want to be loved, okay? And a lot of time, especially like early in recovery, and we have like this gaping hole that we were filling with drugs and alcohol. We'll be like, oh, well, this guy, he's giving me all this attention that I've never had. Well, instead of that, it's more so like that's God's space. And that's where like we can have like a false idol, like accidentally. It's not intentional. We're just trying to fill like this gaping hole that drugs is now removed from, and that's God's spot. So even with Justin, like him being my husband, like God still has to be number one. If I start putting Justin there, God is a jealous God. He wants to be number one, and he will be number one. And as long as I keep that in order, like this is free reign. It's the same thing. Like God is here, and like I'm the church, and he's Jesus. It's the same. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it's the same relationship. So
supposed to love our wives like Jesus loves the church.
That's right. See? Yes. So it's a symbolic relationship.
Was that relationship always there for you? Like, was it always in the back of your mind when you were using that, like, there was, I know this is here for me at any time? Or was it completely...
Well, I wasn't like raised in church. It was just kind of like an idea that Jesus was like tossed around, but I didn't know him personally. I wasn't raised in any of that stuff, but I knew evil. So I know with all the evil that I saw when I was using, and like the terrible trauma, like there has to be a God. Like if you don't have evil, like then it's a very complex idea. Either way, I saw so much evil, there has to be a God. And then I went to these recovery groups. I went to, different 12-step groups along with Christian recovery groups, and it made sense. And I didn't trust because of all of the trauma I went through. I'm not a trusting individual, so I had to try these things. I had to basically, I know you're not supposed to test God, but I had to try these different things, and God never failed me in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely. Like all my questions were answered. I was asking Christian people, and I had all these details, and God's the only one that's never let me down. I think it's really difficult to like start a relationship with a random person, especially when it's somebody like you can't see. So when it's basically like discipleship, I walk them through it. So we have like a long chat with all the women in High on Jesus, and they may not have ever read the Bible, they don't know any of this, or they have difficulty with reading and things like that. And we use that Bible app to help us. But we're doing Bible studies together, and I tell them, like, this is an open forum. Whatever you're thinking, feeling, just keep it out in the open. We're not here to put on, like, a facade or anything like that and, like, make everybody think we're okay. It's okay to not be okay, but let's talk about it. So it opens relationships for all of us to get deeper connected. And in that, we get to walk this spiritual walk together. So it's like everybody's on the same page. Nobody's better than one another. We're all learning together, and we're making sure we're all putting God number one. And so if they have questions, somebody asked me a question about like love versus self-love, and we talked it through. Because I don't know everything. Like I'm in recovery still, and I'm still learning new things, and God's like showing me new things. So I feel like the unity that we all have, like it talks about in the Bible, that unity that's going to bring people to Christ, I feel like that is something that we don't have in the world. Everything is so broken, even like political. Like even if we have differences of opinion and like one lady believes something and I believe something different, as long as it's not some concrete like biblical idea, like we can have these discussions, and it's open discussions, and I love it. Like it's like the greatest thing ever. Like I was texting all the ladies earlier. It's exciting.
Kind of solidified that, like anything specific that comes to memory?
I can't think of anything specific, but it was controversial questions that I would ask people in the church to see like their response. So I would see if people would like break down, or if they would handle it with like love, or if they would get frustrated or irritated, because that's what I was used to in my family. And they were like the most loving people. I would ask probably the most grotesque questions and just try them on purpose. And they were like, oh no, and they would handle it with such like gentleness. And like I could feel God speaking through people. And I knew it wasn't just that human talking, that like God was speaking through like a lady or something. And I would see like these couples, and I would see like marriages, and I'd never known that people could like love each other that much. And it was because that they were placing Jesus first in their life. And I was like, I want this. I want all these things. I want all these people, like all these different people, like races, nationalities, all these different things. And everybody's getting along and like loving each other. I was like, I want that. I was like, I got to get to know this God. But anytime I would read something in the Bible, I would get all my questions answered. God would reveal it. Like sometimes it wouldn't be like maybe like an audible sound, but he would talk to me. I can't explain how he would answer all those questions, but anything like, especially science, because there's a lot of science and I love science. And a lot of those scientific principles. Here's one. Let's think about this. So like a baby getting circumcised on the 8th day. I was reading in like one of these books that a child's immune system was highest on the 8th day, and that would be like the perfect day for circumcision. Like how would any human know that before like science and evidence and things like that? God just had it. Or you know how people would argue that the earth is flat versus it being a sphere. Well, it says in the book of Job that it's a globe. So it already said it when people are having all these arguments. I'm like, the answers are right there. So those things were exciting. So those are like little scientific details that I kept going back and forth about. I'm like, is this stuff real or is this just like made up? So, but God's always proved himself no matter what.